All right, we are live. All right, guys, welcome to the Week 10 NFL DFSArmy Off Chalk Pod, and I got Burns273 with me, and I'm Hunter Sinclair.
Good evening, guys.
Good evening. Burns and I were just actually catching up over the last week. I was mentioning that I've been sort of out of sorts. We didn't do this pod last week, so I know you guys are probably there's nobody out there, so it's like but hopefully we'll get some people to join here in a few. But anyways, picking it back up after last week, it sounds like Burns was real close to actually hitting some big wins last week. I for some reason I didn't do well actually cashing. I was on all the right lineups, but I sort of just didn't put in the time. And this is kind of where we really get down to like looking at your lineup construction on percentiles, on how you divvy up, your allocations around which wide receivers and so forth. Like I had literally a 35% Russell Wilson stacks and Stafford and Winston, I believe, this last week, and they were all great stacks to have. I didn't have the right wide receiver combinations of those games. I was like all on one guy for some reason. I just basically punched all those guys into DS and spit it out, and it gave me 50 lineups with Godwin in it, and very, less, and I didn't really look at all of the lineups to see like what my allocations were, and I didn't spend the time like I normally would spend the time breaking those up into double stack lineups and triple stack lineups and so forth, and I just was like 1 to 3 instead of forcing 2 of, right. And I was like whatever it spits out, I'm just going to play it and go with it. I was like throwing 150 lineups away basically. So
I had a little too much Dalvin Cook.
Yeah, I had a lot of Dalvin. Yeah,
it was about 40 to 45% Dalvin.
Yeah,
but I offset that with about 60% CMC and 95% Jalen Samuels. And
I was loaded on Jalen. I basically had close to 100% Jalen Samuels, so I'm glad he did well for that, because I had him, but I also had Cook, like almost in every one of those lineups. It was Cook or C-Mac, and the C-Mac ones did great. The Cook ones not so great. So,
whatever. He was in a good spot though. It would have been great if he blew up.
All right, well, let's get started on this week. Looks like we got a few people who've joined in. If you guys have questions as we get through the main slate here, feel free to post them and we'll try to respond. Well, let's get started breaking things down. I'm going to kick it off with the Kansas City at Tennessee game. I actually really like this game. Now that we've got word that Mahomes is going to be playing, and Tannehill has been surprisingly not that surprisingly. We knew he was going to be more competent than Mariota, but it's nice to see he's actually producing good fantasy points, even in really not so great games. Like, it was odd. His like worst fantasy game was like 19 points or something like that against Tampa Bay, of all teams, the team that you think he'd put up the most points against. And then he's done actually better against like teams like Carolina, who are pretty good against the pass. So I like actually both sides of it here in this particular matchup. Both of these teams, though, are worse versus the rush than they are against the pass. They're both fairly decent. Well, I guess, yeah. I mean, they're both fairly decent against the pass. I think Tennessee is a little bit worse, though. I mean, they're not. They haven't been as shut down as we kind of have come to expect from Tennessee. Like they're just sort of like a decent defense all the way around the ball, like kind of average or a little bit better than average all the way around the ball. On the Kansas City side, they've been pretty studly actually against the wide receiver position.
Yep.
And really shitty against the run. So like maybe the worst in the NFL, I think, against the run. So you kind of have to like Derrick Henry here a lot. And then I don't think I'm going to play any of the Kansas City running backs in this particular matchup. But there's some interesting options here, I think, and they're all sort of right now still projecting at fairly low ownership, or what we would consider low enough to be sort of off chalk a little bit. Even guys like Tyreek Hill coming in under 10% owned are guys that I think I'm going to be loaded up on pretty heavily. He's pretty pricey at 7,700 on DraftKings. But I don't mind mixing him and Watkins at 5,100 in there pretty heavily. And then on the other side of the ball, we've got the news that that Corey Davis isn't probably likely to play. We'll see how that pans out, but it's looking like he might not play, which really opens things up. It kind of muddies the waters a little bit because you kind of want to just go all in on A.J. Brown in this situation, but the Kansas City's pass defense sort of kind of puts a damper on that a bit. But I don't mind taking a few shots with A.J. Brown. He's a pretty talented guy, rookie receiver here. And even with like guys like Tajay Sharp or Adam Humphries, I don't mind having a few shares of those guys in a situation where I think that Tannehill is going to be forced to throw the ball a lot just to keep up. I think this game has kind of sneaky shootout potential here. And it may just force him to throw the ball a lot more than they may want to just run it. Like I still feel like Derrick Henry's got kind of like the guy on that side to go with, but I don't mind running, even some Jonnu Smith in there with like one of the other pass catchers. If you're running kind of like a double, a 5-man kind of stack. What's your thoughts here on this game? Because I think that this is one of my favorite games to kind of stack up on this particular slate when we really don't have like a clear and favorite like winner. Like most weeks we've got like a standout 53-point game kind of thing, and we just don't have that this week.
Yeah, with this game, I'm very intrigued in this game because Mahomes is back. And I was actually looking at this game for one of my King of the Beach qualifiers, the $100 entries.
Ooh.
Even if the $385 entry. So
did you get a ticket to one of those, or are you just gonna pull the trigger on?
It's the last week, so it's like
you're going all in. I've been upping my $20 entries a few more than I like to the last couple of showdowns, but yeah, last week to get your King of the Beach tickets, guys, if you're chasing.
Yeah, I got one created that I like right now, but I'm gonna tinker with it a little bit. I want to get that stack with Mahomes, Hill, and Kelsey together. I think it could go off and just be in a really good spot to go off this week.
Yeah.
But what I'm looking at is how does it fit with the running backs in and around the 7K range. Those three guys, you can't get CMC in there.
It's going to be really tricky if you're putting Mahomes with like Tyreek in there to get C-Mac. So you're going to have to take value somewhere.
It's a solid lineup at first blush. It starts with Mahomes, and then it goes to David Montgomery and Marlon Mack. So those are two good pieces at the running back position. And then I roll it up with Tyreek Hill, and then I come back with Michael Thomas. And but I'm still playing with the rest of it right now. But I really want Kelsey in this lineup because I think Kelsey's in a great spot here. And
yeah, what point do we just are we at the point of saying like Kelsey's just too expensive for what he's been producing kind of thing? Because it seems like we talk about him every week, and you hate to not be on him for that game where he gets 28, 30 points, but it's like the same thing every week. It's I mean, I like the fact that Mahomes is back because I think he has a higher potential with Mahomes out there, but yeah, I mean, he's tough, and the fact that he's going to be coming in still pretty highly owned for the tight end position, as for a high price tight end,
right.
He's going to be in that 13% range. So he's going to be a harder guy for me to get up to, especially because I want to get up to C-Mac and stuff like that. So, and you just can't do both of those guys.
Yeah, he's projecting around top 3 tight ends right now. So for the week, obviously Hooper's projecting as the number 1 tight end for me, but I don't know. With him, it's going to be probably game stack specific for me. But I could see him going as being a piece per pieces of part in my lineups.
Yeah.
I'm still debating on how much ownership I want in Hooper this week. I got him in a lot of season-long leagues, but I just gotta.
But do you have any interest here on the Tennessee side of the ball?
I think Janu Smith he's a good piece here. Let me take a look and see what they look like in terms of Kansas City against tight end. They're middle of the road.
Yeah, sort of middle of the road. I mean, they're I think averaging about 13 to 14 points, which is not bad, and they're better at defending against wide receivers. They're actually one of the few teams that have kept kind of wide receivers under 30 points,
Right.
per game. So, it's. I think that there's, I like Jonnu Smith in the fact that like they do use that tight end in that typical kind of down the seam type of role, and he's sort of filling in that old Delaney Walker type position, so he's running the same routes and stuff. So I think that it's that he's definitely playable. I don't think it's like a slam dunk or anything here, but he's maybe a better play than some of the punt type plays from like Tajay Sharp or Adam Humphries or any of those guys in this situation. I don't mind taking a few shots with AJ Brown just because we've seen him get the volume at least, and I think he can produce just on the volume alone if Corey Davis doesn't play.
Yeah, it's a good he's a good spot. I'm seeing a lot of red with them. Kansas City against their pass defense. Seeing a lot of red, so I don't know how Tannehill he's in a good spot here, but I don't know if it's going to lead to a lot of fantasy production for them. But
well, if you think that, let me ask you this, because if you think that, you kind of have to go. You kind of have to think about this from a different perspective, because if you don't think that Tannehill and or the Titans can be at least a little bit competitive here, then you really might consider going Kansas City defense with maybe less of the offense and just take one of the receiving targets for Kansas City, like a Kelsey or a Tyreek Hill, and just load up on that combination rather than going too heavily with Mahomes. Because here's the thought, right? Like if Mahomes, if they get up by a little bit, and they kind of have this game in hand, and the Kansas City defense is performing and even scoring potentially, then you think that they're going to hesitate to maybe like pull Mahomes out and just rest him if they've got a 14 to 20 point lead or something like that. I don't know how big of a lead they need to do that, but
Right.
I certainly think the cards are in play with a guy coming back from an injury, that they're not going to put him under undue risk. So
Right.
I would be a little bit more hesitant to running Mahomes game stacks or even team stacks in a case where we don't think Tennessee can be competitive in this match. I think they can be competitive to some degree. So I think that I will run some stacks there, and in those I'll have Derrick Henry, and I'll have maybe a Jonnu Smith or an AJ Brown coming back. I don't know how much of a Tannehill type of stack I might have. I might limit myself there because they have been pretty good against opposing quarterbacks, and Tannehill's not super accurate to begin with.
Right. It's viable strategy to use Kansas City's defense this week. They're going to be lower owned, but one thing about Kansas City defense is once they travel away from the Arrowhead Stadium, they're not as good of a defense as they are at home. So your pick with AJ Brown could actually be a good pick in this matchup because of that fact that they don't travel very well as a defense. And if you didn't want to use Tannehill here and stack him with AJ Brown, you could stack Henry in this situation with AJ Brown and be fine.
Yeah, I mean, you don't necessarily even need two of these guys, right? You could just literally, if you just want to have a game stacker, you could just go Derrick Henry and be done.
Yeah.
So
I mean, all the numbers point to Derrick Henry game here, but
certainly, yeah. And he actually caught a touchdown, weirdly enough, in like last week or the week before. And he only gets like 2 or 3 passes a game, so to catch a touchdown is pretty surprising.
It'd be pretty funny if Tannehill was the key to him becoming a receiving running back because Mariota was just so shitty. But it would be just like mind blowing, I guess. I don't know.
Well, yeah, I don't know if the Dion Lewis experiment has died yet or not, but I remember last year he was kind of like the talk of the most elusive of running backs of the blah blah blah, and never did anything really. So, I don't know how much stock most people put in the elusive ratings and stuff like that, and I don't know. I think I look at some of the actual performance metrics more than some of those spark setting, or spark ratings and whatnot. Just like we've seen talented guys just not produce when they get into the NFL plenty of times.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. I think we've probably covered that game pretty well. So, this one's a kind of a gross game. Cleveland or Buffalo at Cleveland. I don't really have much here to say other than I'm going to be playing the running backs and the defenses from this game. Both are going to be pretty. I think both of I think Chubb over or Singletary, but is going to be highly owned. But the I like the defenses here on both sides, really. I mean, they're both pretty good defenses. Buffalo's a little bit better against the pass. Actually, a lot better against the pass, but Cleveland's been pretty stout against the pass as well. But neither team is really that great. They're kind of middle of the road or a little bit worse against the run.
Right.
And Chubb looks like he's in a really good spot. Both teams are looking like about 140 rushing yard game type situations. So I like the Chubb and Singletary kind of calls. And I think they're finally getting it that Singletary's kind of like, I mean, he's been battling that injury earlier, but I think he's finally kind of getting a bit more of the work there. So I like the fact that fact.
I'm in total agreement with you on this game. I do like the defenses as well as the running game in both situations here with both teams, and Statsational's model showcases that you know, in the almost 150 for Buffalo and then 140 for Cleveland and rush yards for. But I've been hearing around the industry a lot that people want to play Odell Beckham here, and he's in my season-long league, so I have to play him. But I don't know if I want anything more than maybe a Hail Mary in the Millie Maker with him, the $10 Millie Maker.
Yeah, I mean, like Odell's he's a stud, right? So I mean, the guy can go off any week. You know, it just takes one pass really for him to break an 80-yard touchdown, and he's going to be money. But you know, I mean, I'd rather take a shot with a Tyreek Hill kind of guy in that price range than Odell. You know, I don't know why I want to put myself up against these elite Buffalo wide receiver or cornerbacks who've literally been shutting like these outside receivers down like consistently. So, you know, I don't really want to have really a whole lot of that at all. If I was going to play anybody, I'd play probably Landry in this situation, just because I think he's going to get more volume underneath.
Say that, yeah.
I mean, if I was going to play a receiver from Cleveland, which I'm probably not, I would mix in Landry. I'm not gonna really touch Odell. I mean, and on the other side,
Odell's going on the other side, Davis White. That's a tough matchup for him.
Yeah. And on the other side, I don't, you know, the Buffalo guys. I mean, I guess you could John Brown. He's pretty good in most situations, but I think he's just kind of be like, you know, he's likely to get you like 10 to 14 type points here. And I just don't think it's good enough to warrant playing a guy in a hard situation like that. So,
yeah, I think I'm gonna completely fade out the Buffalo wide receivers this week.
Yep.
I'm gonna.
Let's move on to Allen. Yeah. I'm not going to be on either quarterback. I don't have any interest in either one of them. All right, well, let's move on to a juicier matchup. Arizona at Tampa. This is probably going to be the most highly owned stacked game, I'm guessing, on the week, just based off of the 52 over under. And it looks pretty good, I guess, on paper. You know, Tampa just gives it up to the wide receiver, tight ends, kickers, quarterbacks, pretty much everything except for the run. They're like elite at shutting down the run. And I'm not really sure if that's just because they suck so badly at the pass that there's no reason to run against them, or they're actually really good against the run. So either way, I don't have too much of an interest trying to figure out the whole David Johnson, Kenyon Drake situation. I think I'd probably just rather like let somebody else, you know, try to like take a shot at that. You know, I don't know. What's your take on that whole situation? Because I think like if you had a good point of view on it, you know, it just seems like a hard matchup for either one of them, and I don't know that I would want to figure out who's playing for what.
I'm probably not going to go there.
Yeah.
That, if anything on that side of the ball, I'll be looking at Christian Kirk primarily. I think it's a muddy situation with their wide receiving core, especially now that they actually threw a touchdown pass to Andy Isabella last week.
Well, I was going to bring him up because here's a theory I've got. You know, because you know we saw Isabella out there, and he finally got some action. I mean, yes, it was only one pass, and it was for 88 yards and a touchdown, but he caught that ball in pretty tight coverage. It was a beautiful pass, but like, and like, I mean, he literally like seemed like he like almost broke Richard Sherman's ankles on that move that he made to get into the end zone there. And I think that was right. Was it Sherman? Yeah, I think that's right. But
Yeah.
I mean, the kid's got 4.3 speed. He's clearly got some deep ball talent here. My thought is that like they've had a week and a half now to prepare for this game. How are they not trying to figure out how to get the ball into this speedster's hands? The one part of this offense that they've really been lacking on is that deep ball threat. And if they can get Isabella into that role and actually creating that, is there a team that gives up the deep pass better than Tampa Bay so far this year? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
it seems like an elite spot for a deep ball guy, and you want to find that guy. It's not Kirk and it's not Fitzgerald,
No.
so I kind of like taking a shot on him. I mean, there's zero volume here, so it is a risk. Like, he could put up a 0, but I kind of like it. I mean, I kind of like the idea of it. I'm not going to have a whole lot of ownership, but I kind of want to work this kid in and see, if, see if maybe that pays off. I think I would limit that just to these specific stacks, and even within the stacks, I'll probably have, limit it to maybe 20% of however many of these Tampa Bay, Arizona stacks that I run. But, I kind of want to have a piece of that.
Yeah, I think Isabella came out last week. Since Kirk has been back from injury, he had 11 targets his first time back, first week back, and then those targets dropped to 5 against San Francisco. But San Francisco is one of the best defenses in the NFL, whereas Tampa Bay is they're subpar passing defense. And Fitzgerald has only seen 4 targets each week since Kirk has been back. But last week against Seattle, Tyler Lockett burned him as a slot receiver. But I don't see a lot of action going to Fitzgerald. I'm gonna probably be off Fitzgerald in this matchup and probably put all my shares into, if anybody, into Kirk and Isabella.
What about Charles Clay? You have any interest there? I kind of think he's, he got quite a decent amount of action here recently, just kind of coming in. And Tampa Bay is nearly as bad as Arizona is at defending against the tight end this year. So
it's worth a shot. I mean, what's he at right now in terms of salary? Is he bottom of the barrel, 2.5 in DraftKings?
Yeah, let me pull it up. He's pretty cheap. Pull up where's my tight ends? Where's my
Oh, I got him right here. Okay.
Where's my turds?
He's been seeing about a steady 2 to a high of 3 targets in 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, so he's 2,900. So yeah, he's not completely bottom of the barrel, but he's like uber cheap kind of guy. He's also getting to 73.5 on our DFSArmy grades. And he's coming in right now at like less than 1%. So I mean, he's going to be, he's definitely not going to be a guy that hardly anybody's on. And there's definitely upside here. Let's see. Last week, I just want to show you because I think I looked this up. Arizona, yeah, last week. Yeah, he got 3 for 3 last week. No, I'm sorry, that was week 8. What did he do last week? 2 for 1.
Yeah,
or 1 for 2. I mean. So 6 yards. Yeah, he didn't get shit last week. So, but the week before he had three catches for 88 yards. And that was against New Orleans. Yeah. So, I mean, I didn't expect them to do well against San Francisco to begin with. So I don't think that that's that bad of a number against San Francisco. But yeah, I mean, he's only getting 2 or 3 targets per game. However, it doesn't take much for if a guy's going to get, his long in that game was 47 yards. So he's running some routes that can get him some deep targets, and if they even run him once or twice and he can get a touchdown on one of those things and get you,
Right.
15 or 16 points. Like he didn't even get a touchdown in that game, I don't think. Let me see. No touchdown. So it was 88 yards and 3 catches, got you 12 points. But you kind of need a little bit more than that,
Right.
but not that much. If you're gonna punt your tight end, I still want to get
He has seen
close
targets in the red zone too, so
15 points. Yeah. So I mean, and he's a good tight end. I remember he played for Buffalo before, and he's always been a pretty competent pass catcher. So,
yep.
I like that situation. I have heard a lot of people talking about the OJ Howard on the other side, because I mean that's the typical kind of
I was just gonna go there, yeah, and
flow charty type of thing, and he's still coming in fairly low owned at this point, at 6.8%. I mean, that's a lot higher owned, but he's at 3,300, so he's still pretty cheap as well. So I think you can play either one of these guys. OJ Howard's one of those guys who's been in good situations in the past, and they haven't thrown to him, so I'm a little bit concerned there.
yeah.
And I've taken a few shots at Cameron Brate as well when OJ Howard was out, and that didn't pan out. So I don't know why they're not using the tight end like they have historically. So it's kind of weird.
Yeah, he I don't know what's going on with them with his utilization when he was not injured, but they rarely have gone to him all year, even when he was healthy.
I mean, even when he was out, we kind of thought Cameron Brate might be like the go-to guy, and he got, I guess in week 8 he got 6 targets, right? And he caught 3 of those for 30 yards. I mean, that sucks. I mean, I like 6 targets. I don't like 3 catches for 30 yards, but I just remember OJ Howard used to run these routes and he'd catch like a 30, 40-yard pass, and take it, through a couple defenders to the end zone. And he hasn't been doing that. They haven't been throwing it to him in those situations as much. So I'm not super big on him. I'll probably have a few shares, but I'm not gonna, I just got to play it just because it's Arizona and they suck.
Yeah.
In that particular situation, but
I think there's plays at the tight end position that will go lower on than anticipated, and these tight ends could even be in better situations, and we'll get to those games eventually. But I'll have a few shares of them just because it's Arizona, like you said,
right?
But in this game, I'm really liking Godwin in this game. I think he's
Evans and Godwin are both in stellar spots here.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, these guys are both going to be over 20% owned, so we're not talking off chalk plays here. So
yeah, they're pretty tough. They're going to be pretty good matchups. But I mean, Patrick Peterson, people may fade a little bit of ownership off of Mike Evans because of Patrick Peterson, but I haven't seen anything with Patrick Peterson this year that is going to force me off of him. And Godwin and Evans will be highly prevalent in my stacks with Winston for sure.
Yeah, I'll have a good amount of ownership in these guys as well. So, and I like both quarterbacks actually here, Kyler Murray and Winston. I mean, we're going to be talking about stacking this game, so but it's mostly it's a pretty easy game, I think, to stack because we don't really have to mix in too much of the running back situation. So it's really just tight ends and wide receivers here. So just kind of mix and match them. And, I think you can get kind of creative with a couple of these guys like Charles Clay or Isabella. So, all right, cool. Let's move on. Giants at the Jets. it's kind of an interesting game. You know, it looks so at first glance I was thinking, ew, like Giants at the Jets, right? And then I kind of started thinking about it a bit more, and I'm thinking both of these teams really kind of suck
Yeah.
versus the pass. So could this game potentially have some appeal from a fantasy perspective, even though it's kind of got a 43 low over under total? They've both been playing really bad, but they've also both been playing pretty hard teams defensively and offensively against them. So now they get to go against equally shitty teams. And
Right.
either it can go one way or another. One way is like there nothing happens, and they like both defenses actually end up playing better than they normally have been. Like they're pretty okay defenses, on one part of the game script. Like the Jets are pretty good against the run, and the Giants are just kind of sort of mediocre across the board. But like, yeah, they've got a few key kind of positional plays that they're good at. So it can either go that way, or it can go where like these offenses could actually just throw a lot and actually end up this game could go a lot higher than expected. Just due to the fact that it's going to be mostly, I think, a more pass prevalent game than what it's projected at.
Yeah, and I'm not so sure if the run game for the Jets is in play here. Leonard Williams is now on the Giants via trade prior to last week.
Yeah.
And he actually, watching the Giants play Dallas last week on Monday night, he actually did. He came into that defense and did a very good job for him. That was his first game with them. You're not shutting down Zeke, but they held him fairly decently. But he's going up against his old team, and so that will Le'Veon Bell have? If Le'Veon's healthy, is he going to have the room that?
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing is Bell's not even guaranteed to play here.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you're considering an injured or a less than 100% Bell, I'm not really too keen on playing that in this situation, anyways. In a game where we're basically projecting the Jets to rush for 77 yards, and the Giants to rush for 80. So, I mean, like this is a low rush total game on either side, but doesn't look too appealing. I might have some interest if Bell sits and playing a bit of Ty Montgomery.
He's
But
gimmicky,
yeah, just because he catches some, he kind of, he's kind of got the similar kind of, not really similar to Bell, but he plays that pass catching role. They also have that Bill Powell, so I'm not really sure how they divvy that up, but I assume that Powell will be the kind of ground and pound kind of guy, and maybe Montgomery's going to catch the passes. Or is that right? Probably how it will go.
Yeah. I'm not even.
I don't know if I really want to dig that deep.
Yeah, even with that, I mean, the Jets, their O line is like bottom 3 in the NFL. So I think with them, I would pretty much just stay with their passing.
Yeah, they might get just from the news and notes here, they may get their left tackle back this week. Their center's still going to be out, and I think their right guard is questionable. So they're going to be at less than 100% their O-line anyways. But they have been like that for the last 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah.
So without their left tackle. So I think getting the left tackle back helps. Of anybody, it's going to help Darnold out the most, just from a protection perspective,
Right.
a bit. So, I mean, I don't have really any of the running backs here listed as guys. I don't want to play Saquon Barkley at his price in this particular matchup. I don't really want to mess with Bell or the Ty Montgomery or injured Bell or whatever kind of situation. So I'm mostly looking at the wide receivers here. Tate, Slayton are probably the two on the Giant side that I like the best. A little bit Amendola, a little bit less, and then I like kind of Anderson and Crowder about equally. On the other side, I think they both have both sides have upside potential to those four basically wide receivers. And I think you can kind of mix and match those a bit if you want to run a few stacks with Jones or Darnold either side.
Yeah,
I think they're both about equal in my mind. I think Jones probably has a little bit higher upside just with his rushing upside a bit, but they both kind of are pretty mobile. So,
yeah, I like
and then
Jones. I like the Jones connection to like.
No, I'm sorry. What the Jones connection?
I like the Jones connection to Slayton.
Yeah,
they have a solid connection there. I think Tate is in a good spot here too. So, we could definitely see some really good fantasy production from those two guys there. But yeah, I mean, with Saquon's salary, and he's going to be owned because there's going to be people that don't want to pay all the way up for McCaffrey this week because it's that, oh man, he's over the 10K threshold now, and I don't. It plays with your head, but I mean, he's going to be owned, and that's why. But I could see Slayton having a really good game in this matchup here with the Jets, and the Jets they're injured on their defense too, so they're kind of a leaking defense right now. And Miami, they hit them up hard last week, so I could see it again this week against with the Giants against them.
So we got a question here from Jason. How about the snowstorms up north? Any caution with these games? Carolina Giants. Yeah. So I guess we could just talk about quickly with the weather. Yeah. So I think we got. I guess there's a few games that are have a bit of concern. The Packers Panthers game in Green Bay. So there's a. Let's see here. It looks like the projected temperatures are about 20 degrees, chance of precipitation is 4%, and about 10.5 mile northwest mile per hour. I'm not sure about the snow there, but the Cleveland game, there looks like it's going to be potentially a bit higher wind speeds, up to about 16 mile an hour sustained winds in Cleveland, and about a little, let's see, about 12% chance of precipitation. Temperature is only around 49 degrees. So I'm not seeing anything right now that looks like anything that's like too crazy from a like heavy snow game. We're still pretty early in the season, where we won't probably see like the heavy snows that we get a little bit later. But let's see, yeah, just looking at this, it doesn't look like we might see a bit more running game. And I mean, if you want to play where kind of like as far as like the cold weather narrative goes, generally in those kind of like colder climate games, especially when we get down to things like where it's wet or there's snow, they did tend to be a bit more kind of like old school running games. The ball's harder, a little bit harder to handle, harder to throw, harder to catch kind of thing. So they do tend to run the ball more in those situations. So you can give a bit of a little bit higher tick to the running game over the passing game in those situations. The games where we really kind of like try to avoid heavily the pass and kickers for that matter are just going to be games where we're going to see 20 plus mile an hour winds. Really anything kind of that starts to exceed 15 mile an hour sustained winds will start to affect the pass and the kicking game. So
Yep.
those are the main concerns. The wet weather a little bit less unless it's really sloshy. We saw like one game like that was just like a mud battle, and it was really just a lot of running, a lot of turnovers, that kind of situation. So we'll look out for those types of things. And if you're in the Army, we have a dedicated channel that kind of tracks the weather up to the game time. We usually don't look at it too closely until we get closer to game time. So probably sometime tomorrow afternoon, evening, where we have a pretty clear idea of what the weather is going to be in those situations, and our weather expert meteorologist will post any of the updates to those types of things.
Yeah, and with that Green Bay game, they're so acclimated to that type of weather, the cold, snow. They play in it all the time, every year. So it kind of favors them more towards the Carolina team that doesn't play in that type of
Yeah, I mean,
weather.
I don't think it's going to surprise anybody if Christian McCaffrey carries the ball more than usual. More than usual, it would be like 40 carries a game because
Yep.
he gets so much action anyway. So like, okay, so you're
Or
gonna
dump off passes.
how are you going to give him more of an advantage? He gets 50% of the targets. So, but yeah, I mean, generally a team coming into a cold climate like that doesn't play as much is going to be more likely to run in those situations than to pass. But I don't think it's really going to make that big of a difference for Carolina, just because they already have that game script. So
Right.
we'll just expect them to play that way anyhow. But all right, cool. Let's keep going. New Orleans, Atlanta. So Atlanta is going down south. Well, not that farther south, but yeah, to New Orleans. So we got another high total game here, 51.5 points. This will probably be another game that a lot of people are going to be targeting. This one's a little bit tricky for me just because New Orleans really been kind of stepping it up defensively. And we are going to see Matt Ryan back in this game. So, I'm not sure if that's good or bad, actually, but it's definitely something where we know what we're kind of what to expect out of Matt Ryan. So, I don't know. What's your take here? I got a few thoughts, but kind of like I want to kick it over to you first, Burns.
Well, the Domination Station has Matt Ryan at 10% lower ownership, a little bit over 10% lower ownership than Breeze in this matchup. We know that New Orleans they're a different team than they are away from New Orleans. Breeze is back. He's got that connection with Thomas. That is going to be a high owned stack this week. It's already a given. It's going to be a high owned stack. The play that I actually like on New Orleans side of the ball is Ginn in this game.
Mm-hmm.
I like him, and I like Kamara in this game. Kamara has always done really well with Breeze, and with Breeze back now, in Kamara, they're saying he's healthy.
Yeah.
And people are actually talking. Every pod I've listened to, they're all saying that Latavius Murray's he's now taking over that Ingram role. But what we know of Kamara from years past with Ingram in that role was he still beasted. He was still really good running back in that in that format that they had, and
Yeah,
I'm
I've
not going to
listened
shy
to this.
away from them this week at
Yeah,
all.
I mean, I think we know what we can expect from both Latavius um, and from Kamara here. Assuming that Kamara is coming in healthy and they're going to play him like normal, I really don't anticipate this being any different than it was early on the season with the two of them. And if you look, they actually like they do split the carries. Like this isn't like the the Kamara show, right? Like he doesn't get a lot of volume, period. He's just
Right.
extremely efficient with it, and he gets most of the passing work, and he's very efficient with it. I mean, if Kamara were to ever come in and do 20, carries a game, it would be like ridiculous. He'd be Christian McCaffrey. But he puts up those kinds of numbers regardless. I mean, he's getting half the touches,
Right.
in some cases that McCaffrey does, and he still puts up, those numbers just because he's so efficient with what he can do after he does get the ball in his hand.
Absolutely.
So yeah, so I mean, like, like if you want to give, let's say that they're going to run the ball 20 to 24 times in the game. Half of those are going to go to Kamara and half of them are going to go to Latavius Murray. So it's going to be like a 12 to 12, 14, 10, however you want to split it up, kind of split. It's going to be pretty close to like 50, 55, 45 split from a rushing game perspective. And then Kamara will get like whatever, 8 to 10 targets or 7 to 10 targets, and Latavius is going to get 2 to 3. Like that's going to be the breakdown. So
Right.
take those numbers and then figure out, do you want to play either one of these guys with that expectation, right? Does Latavius need 20 touches in a game to produce value? I kind of think he does.
Yeah.
In order to get, like, unless he, breaks a 40-yard run for a touchdown, I don't know that he has enough volume to get you there. So I don't know if I want to, like, yeah, there could be a game this season where you could play both of these guys and they both hit over 20 points, fantasy wise, and produce value. I just don't know that I want to do a situation like that and try to risk it, especially against Atlanta, who's been, reasonably, good, better than average against the run.
Yeah, they're
So
definitely competent against the run for sure.
yeah, I mean, Atlanta used to be a team that we used to target the run against, and they haven't been that same. They haven't been that same weak team against the run as they have in years past. So, I think it's more advantageous to just take the Breeze to Thomas or Ginn or even Cook kind of stack here, and use Kamara, mix him in as you kind of see fit. He's a good maybe pivot off of some of these other kind of top end running backs, but I don't know that you necessarily have to be heavily owned in the Kamara situation. I kind of feel like coming back from an injury, I don't want to be overly invested in Kamara this week. I'd rather kind of wait and see how he comes back. And then if he doesn't perform this week, I'll take him next week at a much lower ownership.
Yeah. If you're enticed to play Latavius Murray, just know that Atlanta is a top 10 defense against the run up the middle and stuff. So they're pretty good at that point. I'm not gonna have anything in Latavius Murray this week. My shares will be in Kamara because they're not Atlanta versus the passing running backs isn't as good as they are against straight non-passing running backs.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. I mean, this game is really not. It doesn't look set up that well for a whole lot of rushing potential on either side. Certainly not on the Atlanta side. I don't want any of that. But it's not super attractive to me on really either side. I mean, I have Kamara and Latavius in season long, and I've got to figure out that I'll probably end up playing Kamara this week, just because I think Fournette's on a bye. But that's an easy play. I don't have to play him in daily if I don't want to. But yeah, on the Atlanta side, I think you got all the normal stuff, right? You've got Matt Ryan, you've got Julio, you've got all of the pass catchers there, Ridley, Hooper, whatnot. So
I think Ridley's pretty intriguing in this matchup here.
I mean, especially if you consider if Lattimore is going to be kind of sticking with Julio, you got that kind of Lattimore effect on the Ridley. So I like that call. I mean, all of these guys, I think. What's that?
I'm going to take a look and see who's actually going to be on Ridley. It's actually going to be Eli Apple on Ridley this week. So I know Eli Apple from his Ohio State days and his lovely Giants days. He can be burned. So Ridley's in a good spot here. So he could be a good piece for a game stack in this. Of course, Julio can turn the slate upside down, even if he is going up against Marshawn Lattimore. Lattimore has had his challenges, but he played for Ohio State too, so I've seen him in his element. But he's a good DB, but we'll see. I think this is a great game to stack up. I mean, it's going to be a highly owned game. If you can differentiate a little bit, maybe go with that Ridley over Julio. You might get a slightly lower ownership. I don't know exactly how much less you're going to get it, but
I mean, so Solon was saying that he thinks that Atlanta run D is still trash. So he's just basically fire up Kamara and fire up Latavius, I'm guessing here. But I think you're probably right. Like that, it's probably accurate that they aren't as good as maybe the numbers suggest, just because they've been pretty bad against the pass. But good point there. And he's also saying on DK for cheaper than Kamara, he likes Mark Ingram versus Cincinnati. Yeah, we'll get to that game here in a minute.
There's a play in that game that I like too.
But definitely any running situation against Cincinnati is always in play.
Yeah.
Sure. All right. Well, I think Ridley's a good call here. I like the Lattimore effect, and on the New Orleans side, I think you're definitely, obviously Thomas is going to be highly owned guy here. I think he's squarely in play every week, so have no problem firing him up. But if you want to go with a lower owned Ted Ginn, he's definitely playable with Drew Brees under center. So, and I think you could. What's the health on Cook? Is he coming in healthy?
Let me take a peek on Roto World for him.
Okay, because he's also an option, I think, coming in here. But he was actually I don't know. He seems like he's almost better without Brees than with him. But Brees just hasn't been using that tight end position very much, and I think it's just because how good Michael Thomas has been, that he just hasn't had to lean on that side of things. And with Kamara coming back, I kind of feel like Kamara takes away a lot of that tight end role. So I don't know that I really want to go there.
Well, Roto World has him not listed on the final injury report.
Okay, so he's healthy, at least enough to play. But so you can consider him, but I don't think you need to go there. I think we have some value and higher end guys that are probably in better situations this week.
Yeah, and also Traquan Smith was not listed on the final injury report too. So
Yeah, he's also another guy that could be in play this week. He's more of a punt play, in my opinion, but very low ownership, very kind of you want to own too much of that guy. But if you want to run a couple of variations of your stacks with him, I don't see any reason why you can't do that.
Yeah, I would definitely save those for your bigger contests. I definitely wouldn't run him out in your $100 55 entry contest
No,
or something
not
like
not
that.
yeah, not for me.
Yeah. So
all right, cool. Well, this is a good timing because we're actually going to Baltimore at Cincinnati next. So let's talk about this. This is actually a really intriguing game. We got Baltimore favored by 10, at least when I pulled my numbers, and a 46 point over under here. So, I mean, the clear and favorite stack kind of or situation here is the Baltimore running game, which is really just on the feet of Lamar Jackson predominantly, followed by Mark Ingram, both in a smash spot against a just completely porous Cincinnati run defense. Like everybody's run on this team, so probably in a smash spot. I like both Ingram and Jackson here. They're both going to come in pretty highly owned. Let's see what Ingram's price is at. I mean,
he's
ownership's
at
at
7
here.
on DraftKings. He's at 7.1K.
I mean, ownership is what I'm looking at. Hold on just a second. I'm pulling up my Dome station. Got too many tabs open here.
Yeah, so Ingram's at 14.2%.
Yeah, pretty high. Not terribly high yet, but that's probably where I think I probably expect him come in a little bit higher than that, but that's maybe about between there and 20. So where I probably expect him to land.
Lamar's the highest projected so far at 17.03%.
Who?
Just slightly more than Lamar Jackson.
Oh, for quarterbacks, yeah. I definitely expect him to be the highest owned quarterback, and that's really high owned for a quarterback.
Yeah.
Generally, anything over 10% we consider chalk for tight end or for quarterbacks. Yeah, and I'm just
you
looking.
gotta. This game's so intriguing because how the projection on the statsational model, it's 250 yards projected for rushing. It's such an intriguing game, and it's one that I've been. This is probably the game that I've been tossing back and forth so much. How do I want to attack this game, and how, in terms of being able to develop a lineup with Baltimore players in it, but it's a lineup construction that is still solid as a whole with all the other pieces together with it. I'm been tossing that back and forth in my head, and I'm like, I know I like Lamar this week. He could be perfect as a naked play. Ingram is in play.
Yeah, I mean, I think any week you can play Lamar Jackson completely naked and just and run players from other teams. I don't really know that you need to ever have him in either a team or game stack necessarily. I do think that there's some value in this game. I don't know that you need to force it to be in your Lamar quote unquote game stacks or quote unquote team stacks, but I want to have some ownership in Marquise Brown. He's likely to be playing this week, and that guy has game breaking speed every time he gets on the field and can get the ball in his hands. And Cincinnati has really just been like progressively playing worse and worse. Not only to the running game, but now having I think they lost one of their kind of Kirkpatrick or some, but one of their key kind of cornerbacks, and there's been more opportunities on the passing side as well against them. But I mean, obviously there's really just two guys. There's the Marquise Brown and there's Mark Andrews, and really Andrews hasn't been as I think he's been battling a bit of an injury ever since like week 4 or something like that, where he got hurt and then he kind of came back maybe a little bit too soon, and I'm not sure he's still at 100%, but he hasn't been quite as kind of beast mode as he was the first few weeks of the season. But I think he's in play most weeks. I will say though, Cincinnati is one of the better teams at defending against the tight end position, which is a bit odd because they used to be pretty horrific against the tight end, but they actually have stepped it up, and I don't know if that's just due to they got a positional player there that's been covering that. I haven't watched too many of those games, but it is something to be a little bit considerate of. I kind of feel like I'd rather play Marquise Brown potentially over Andrews a bit here, but I like mixing both of those guys in. And then on the Cincinnati side, I don't really like any of it. Ever since they benched Dalton, the team's unplayable for me. I don't know if you have kind of the same situation here, but it's
well. So Ryan Finley's going to be their quarterback now.
Yeah.
Since benching Dalton, the one piece on this side, and a lot of people are saying they'd like to go with Boyd on this, and I've even seen some people talking up Mixon. But the one play that is it's kind of intriguing. It's a pay down option in this game, and he's sitting around that Mike Gesicki range. And Mike Gesicki is getting a lot of talk this week, more so than I've ever heard for a Miami tight end, outside of when Charles Clay was with him. But the one play is Tyler Eifert in this game. Finley's a rookie quarterback. What do rookie quarterbacks typically do? They utilize that tight end spot. He is getting 16.3% red zone target share. He's been targeted in the red zone 7 times. He's actually seeing a pretty favorable target share of 13.1%. And that ranks up there with Austin Hooper and Travis Kelce. Austin Hooper's at 13.3%. Kelsey's at 13.9%. So it's slightly below them. But he did see 9 targets in week 8 before the bye. And so that is pretty intriguing. And Baltimore is they're not sensational against the tight end either. So
they're not
they're kind of
necessarily bad. I haven't looked up who they've matched up against. I guess I could pull it up, but I mean, there's probably some plays to be made on the Cincinnati side. I think you can make a case for Eifert. He did adequate last week or in week 8, I guess.
He just popped a little bit to me in this game. The numbers did, and it's worth a little bit more of a look into it. If I have a 5% share on them, I'm going to be over the field.
Because when did they bench?
I don't think anybody's going to.
When did they bench? They benched Dalton after week 7, right? So week 8, Finley played, and then they went on their bye, right?
I'm pretty sure.
I'm pretty sure that's how it was. Actually, I can look it up real quick. It was Dalton. No, sorry, Dalton played in week 8. So I guess, did they bench him after? I guess they benched him after week 8, and maybe I just heard the news after week 8 and
Right.
Then they went on a bye. So actually, Finley hasn't played yet.
But he's going to have to go. Yeah. Baltimore's.
Yeah.
Let me check how they.
Yeah, it's really kind of a bummer because Dalton's like from a fantasy, like look, they haven't been winning games, so like they're changing some stuff up. They want to do some stuff, but Dalton's been actually pretty good from a fantasy perspective, getting points to wide receivers and points for himself and stuff like that. So like if Dalton was playing, I kind of like playing more of the like wide receivers here against Baltimore. I just don't. I don't think I want any of that with a Ryan. I don't know anything about this Ryan Finley. I don't know how to, what to expect from him or how he's going to play or who he's going to throw to. And I kind of would rather just play Baltimore defense and, put Mark Ingram in there or Andrews or Marquise Brown or Jackson and just stack it all up on the Baltimore side and smash it and be done. Like say Cincinnati, thank you, but no thanks.
Yeah, I mean, in this game, for me, it's all Baltimore. But if I have that one lineup with Eifert in it, and everything just fits together, and he does have a semi-decent game. He has semi-decent games a couple of times a year, unless he's hurt. So if it could be one of those weeks and he's in that $10 Millie Maker lineup, it's like, hey, there you go. But
I may have to go look at.
It's not going to be a high.
I may have to go look at some tape on Finley. I think we probably have some preseason tape to look at on him, but I'm not too thrilled about playing any of that. I think from what I remember, he's like he does not throw the ball deep. So like he's like an underneath kind of short pass. Like, so yeah, guys like maybe Boyd or Eifert are potentially in play in that situation. I don't want to pay up for Boyd though with a rookie or with a backup quarterback throwing to him. Really, I just it just doesn't seem like a great situation. I don't mind the Eifert call there and take a shot on a few lineups with that, but I don't want to pay up for a guy in a really questionable situation.
Yeah, I'm not going Boyd in this situation, especially with AJ Green not coming back and suffering a setback. I'm not even touching that. I'm not touching Auden Tate in this matchup at all.
Green won't. Nixon. Yeah, Green will not be playing, so he's not coming back this week.
Yeah, so if I have anyone, it's probably the Eifert call, and it's probably like one lineup, and that's it. If it's a throwaway lineup, it's a throwaway lineup. But I mean, he could get 9 targets and 5 catches for 50, 60 yards, and he's already making value. So,
let's see here. Solon likes the Eifert call, but thinks let's see, I'm stuck on Jay Smith from Tennessee. Yeah, okay. We mentioned both or the Tennessee tight end there as well, Johnny. Cincinnati sucks. Yes, they do. Welcome, Chris, to the show. Yeah, we're gonna get to we already talked about Nick Chubb earlier in the podcast, so you can rewind to talk about that. But yeah, basically Chubb, Singletary, and the defense are the only really things that we like in that game. So moonshine in that cup. All right. That's maybe. Are you talking about my cup here? This
maybe.
Is yes. Okay. All right, let's move on. We're killing the people talking this much about Cincinnati. Cincinnati, I like that. All right, Green Bay at Carolina at Green Bay.
This is a good game.
Yeah, so I guess some news and notes here. This will be in Green Bay. The temperature will be cold, and we should see a lot of Christian McCaffrey. So, Yeah, I mean, obviously Christian McCaffrey's coming in right now at pretty high ownership, even at his ridiculously high price. We're still projecting him close to 30% owned on the slate, which is pretty impressive for a guy that cost you 10.5. But he's in a pretty good spot here. We're right now projecting Carolina rush fourth best rushing total on the slate, due to the matchup and the awesomeness of the CMAC. Green Bay has historically been not as good against the run as they have been against the pass, although they've been pretty poor against both really recently. So we saw a bit more competent Green Bay pass defense earlier in the season, but haven't been as great lately. But still pretty decent against the pass. And then on the other side of the ball, Carolina has also been more competent against the pass than they have been against the run. So this kind of like sets itself up to be a pretty run-heavy game, regardless of the weather. And if you want to get on the weather as a potential reason to play more running side of this game, then go for it, because I think it's a good play either way.
Yeah. I like both backs in this game too.
On both backs on the Green Bay side, or are you talking about both backs as in C-Mac and Jones?
Yeah, I like obviously I love Mac. C-Mac, I mean that's a given. But I do like Jones in this game too. I mean, with weather, it could force Rodgers to throw shorter passes. And Aaron Jones he's shown it this year already that he can be a beast out of the backfield and catch short passes from Rodgers out of the backfield and make some serious magic with them. So I like it. But he's going to cost you, $7K. That's a lot. So,
yeah, Solon saying that he's fading C-Mac. That's definitely a bold call, and that, I think with any guy that's priced as high as Christian is, that, you can make that call, right? Like he's got to get you over 30 points really to pay off that high of a salary. So, if you're going to bank that he has that he underperforms for the weekend, if he gets 24 points, you're not dead in the water if you haven't played him, because like, assuming that there are a few other running backs that get in that same 20 something point range, you're way better off than the rest of the field if you saved yourself $3,000 by playing Mark Ingram or whoever else gets that 24 points, right? So I don't think it's a fool play, but I feel like I'll probably try to get close to the field, maybe a bit over the field this week on Christian McCaffrey myself. I'll probably be around or just over that 30% mark. But I'm not going to fault you if you don't want to play him at all. I think if you don't play him, you definitely get yourself in a situation where you're it's one of two things, right? Like you go heavy ownership where you're going to just try to double the field on a guy like that, or you do what you're doing and fade him, and then you banks if it works, right? Like, and it doesn't have to like smash work. Like, you don't have to have him break a leg out there for it to work. But if you fade a guy that's $4,000 and he goes off for 20 points, you're fucked if you don't have him.
Yeah.
So you don't have that same situation when you fade an expensive guy. So,
well, what they could do instead of full fading him, utilize him in your 3 entries or your single entry tournaments where you're going up against maybe 1,000 or less entrants, right? And in those type of tournaments, what's going to happen is you're the majority of the field is going to have Christian McCaffrey. He's probably going to be owned like 65, 70% in those tournaments. So what you do is you basically have a free square with him, and you differentiate outside of him. So you can still afford with Christian McCaffrey. You can still afford a Lamar Jackson, but you're not going to be able to get Christian McCaffrey and like Michael
Michael
Thomas together.
Thomas. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're going to have to make concessions somewhere in your lineup, right? You're definitely probably going to be punting at your tight end position, and you're going to take a cheaper defense, and you're not going to be playing your
Right.
top end. It depends. If you sort of take like a Samuels or somebody like that, then you can maybe get up to a Michael Thomas, and then play some 4K wide receivers. But yeah, I mean your lineup's not going to look as pretty as it's going to look playing a 6 or 7K kind of guy. So
Right. And another thing is like
here's the
with
thing. If
that
you when we talk about winning tournaments and like what we talk about on this pod a lot is going for the win, a lot of times, because we're chasing qualifiers and whatnot, and we can't afford to fade a guy like Christian McCaffrey because he is a top scoring player. So you have to put him into your GPP lineups if you're going for a win. You can't put a guy in there that has a potential to be the number one scoring at his position for the week. If you do that, you don't have a shot at taking down those tournaments as much as you do playing, fading him. So now with other situations where we're looking at high ownership, for like say a wide receiver or something like that, you certainly can make those decisions because the variability in those guys, being the number one scoring person for that week is a lot lower than a Christian McCaffrey or a Dalvin Cook or whoever, right, is the stud running back. So, you kind of have to, excuse me, you take it, Bert.
Okay. So way you can approach this Christian McCaffrey dilemma, instead of full fading him, use him in your cash games, use him in your smaller GPP lineups, your 1,000 or less entrant lineups. But when it comes to your huge contests, like your $1, the $1 $200,000 entrant, or even not even that big, like the 20,000 entrant contest or something like that. The 20 max contest. What you do is instead of full fading them, you just limit the ownership that you have in him. Like limit them to 20%, 15%. But because if he does go off, you're still going to have 15 to 20% ownership in him in those contests. But it's shaping up, like this week is shaping up, and I've heard in multiple pods where people are like, I think I'm going to go with the higher priced wide receivers this week because it's shaping up to be that kind of a week. So it's a variation. Like, is it a high price, high dollar wide receiver week, or is it a Christian McCaffrey week? We'll see. I mean, we'll see when the games are all done and who's sitting at the top. But when you look to create your lineups, make sure that you're doing it in a way that tells a story. Storytelling in your lineups is a big thing, and not a lot of people understand how to tell a story in their lineups. And it, like, for example, the Baltimore game. If you look at StatSational's model, He has 250 yards projected for a rush. What you can do in that is say, well, we know that Lamar is going to get his, but what if it's actually Ingram that is going to beast, and he's going to get 2 to 3 touchdowns, and he's going to get 100 yards, 125 yards, and then Lamar is going to get a good bulk. He's going to get 90, and maybe like Gus Edwards gets, I don't know, 50 yards or whatever. Those are the kind of things that when you go to construct your lineup that you need to be thinking about. Like the game down in New Orleans, it's got a high spread on it, like I think it's 13 points now, 12 and a half, 13 points, with a high game total. But you can take different approaches on that, and think about how the game is actually going to look. So always keep that in the back of your head when you're creating lineups.
All right. Thanks, Burns, for covering me while I have a coughing fit. Yeah, the moonshine is pretty strong over here. Yeah, I think that's a good call. At least get a little bit of ownership. If depends on how many lineups you're running. If you're running 3 lineups, then do whatever. But if you run 20 lineups, you want to put them into 15%, and I think that's smart, just so you're not sitting there going, oh shit, I didn't play him and he's doing his thing, right?
Yeah.
And at least you have one bullet in the gun, and you're hoping that you get the rest of the lineup okay.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on here. Was there any other stuff you want to talk about? Green Bay, Carolina, on the receiving side of the game?
No, not with that game. I think we covered it.
Okay.
I mean, we didn't talk any about Davante Adams, but
he's supposed to be playing here. The one thing I'll mention there is that and I saw this. This is really my own analysis, but I did see a bit of information out on him that he is a touchdown. What do we call this? Regression candidate, basically, to the mean as far as like getting more touchdowns than he has, because I think he's like up there with like the guys like Mike Williams and stuff like that, who have gotten a lot of opportunities and red zone looks targeting wise, but not actually converted. So we could see that correct itself this week. It looks a little bit not as good of a matchup, just because Carolina has been fairly decent against the pass, but they have been susceptible at times to giving it up. And I wouldn't put Davante Adams out of it. I think you can get him here in a situation where he's going to be less than normally owned, and I think he is a guy that you can target pretty much any week. So
I think his price tag is right too at 6.9K.
Yeah,
he's only been back 2 weeks off of injury, so it's kind of with Davante. It's kind of in that similar position when Michael Thomas was priced at 6.6K about 4 weeks ago. And what happened when Michael Thomas was in that 6.6K range? He blew up and he put up like 40, 42 points. So Kings points.
We've seen Davante Adams do that kind of game before, and he hasn't done it this year really. So it's only a matter of time before Rodgers gets going his number one wide receiver.
Oh yeah,
this game. So
he is Rodgers' main dude, and now that he's back in the lineup, Rodgers is going to go to him more and more. So I'll have that. I'll have that in my lineup, a few lineups for sure.
Okay. We got Detroit going to Chicago. Another game up north here. We've got Chicago giving up 3, lower game total at 42.5 here. And yeah, so this is another game that kind of stacks itself pretty heavily to the run on both sides. Detroit and Chicago being better against the pass defensively and not so great against the run. Particularly Chicago projecting pretty well as far as the running back situation against the Detroit team. I've got them projected. Let me see here. What's odd here is that, our statstational model only has this game at about 107 rushing yards for Chicago. But I've got Detroit giving up almost the most points to running backs in the league. Just kind of interesting. Chicago just hasn't been very efficient on offensively, period. So their numbers are sort of like pretty crappy. And so we kind of show that from a yardage perspective, both for the pass and for the run. But when you stack them up against the Detroit defense, who's been pretty bad generally, there's some opportunity here, and we've seen what David can do, Montgomery can do when given some decent opportunity. So I think that there's some opportunity here for that. And let me see what his ownership is coming in at, because I think he was on towards.
I would assume he's going to be pretty higher owned.
Yeah, I think he is. He was coming in at Montgomery. Yeah, well, actually, we've only got him at 5.3%, so it's not that bad. It's pretty low. Let me just double check that with my other ownership here. Montgomery. Oh, okay, so some conflicting ownership numbers here. So we've got him at 5.5, and I've got him shown on this on my other site as 27% owned, just under Christian McCaffrey. I'm not sure he's going to come in at that same, but we're pretty far ends of that spectrum, and we may not have the most up-to-date ownership. I definitely think he's going to be higher owned at his price point, 5,300, than 5%. I think that's too low.
I think he's going to be.
He'll probably be somewhere in that.
He'll be
20,
one of the 5 highest owned running backs on the slate.
Yeah, I mean, he's just too cheap for the volume he's getting. And people, regardless of the it's a pretty good matchup. People are going to be playing the volume there. So,
yeah,
I think
he's you want an off chalk play in this game. You want to get off of that chalk on David Montgomery. You could float over to and get $1,100 savings to Tariq Cohen in this game. He has had good games in the past, and he has been on winning Millie Maker lineups in the past. So he could be a candidate here where he is in play in this game. So
yeah, I mean, he's getting a lot of passing work. It's weird though. It's like almost unbelievable the numbers that he puts up, because I don't understand it. So like back in week 7, he gets 12 targets, 9 catches for 19 yards. Is that possible? How is that possible? Like he's catching the ball literally like 1 yard from the line of scrimmage or behind the line, and then going nowhere with it. So he's not been the Tariq Cohen that we saw last year as much. I mean, I love the volume. Like, yes, give me 9 catches a game from the second running back guy that's super cheap. But dude, you got to do something with that. Like 20 yards, come on.
Yeah, I know, and I wish he was I wish he was a little bit more production oriented with those targets that he has, but um, it could just
Yeah, I
be
mean,
one of those. It could be that week where he goes off like he did last year. Where
yeah, I mean, I don't mind the play. I think it's a good low pivot kind of low play to get off that chalk. And he definitely has. He's out there. He's catching passes, so he has potential to turn that into
it's not
production.
the
I don't
chalk
know.
of. I would say it's not the chalk of Montgomery that you're specifically getting off of because it's an $1,100 price pivot.
Yeah.
The pivot that it could be is the Ronald Jones pivot, where there could. I've heard a lot of talk about him this week, and I don't even. I'm not
Well,
on board with
I
him.
know everybody knows me and my affinity for not playing guys from Tampa Bay from a running back perspective, but so I have the same problem playing running backs from Detroit. So you can talk about the Detroit running backs, but I won't be playing any of those guys either.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, Ronald Jones, okay, whatever. Like play Jones or whoever the other guy is over there, Peyton Barber or whatever. But the I don't play running backs from that team, and I don't play running backs from Detroit. So regardless of the matchup, they just and that's historically been very profitable for me. So I'll continue to do that.
And Cohen, it wouldn't take much for him to make value. I mean, he would have to catch probably about 5 catches. Let's see, 5. If he went for 50 or 60 yards, yeah. I mean, he could make value there.
If he could go for 50 or 60 yards, which he can, I just haven't seen it, unfortunately. So I think in this situation, it's a good matchup for him to do something like that. But I'll limit my ownership there. I think that he's worth maybe 5% of my lineups type of situation, but or less. But
he may make one of my lineups in the $1 KOTB.
Yeah,
for sure. Because I don't think he's going to be owned. I think he's going to be like less than 1% owned. I don't think anybody's going to own him. And
no, he's going to be super low owned. Yeah,
you could even pair him with the Chicago defense and be a perfect stack, perfectly acceptable stack. Same with Montgomery. A perfectly acceptable stack would be to pair him with Chicago defense.
Let's see here. I've got. I was looking at this game. So the other option I think to consider on the Detroit side would be the tight end situation from a matchup perspective. That looks pretty interesting, but I don't really know that there's a whole lot on that side I really want to get into. I think Stafford also a little banged up as well. It looks like he's going to potentially play, but I had seen some kind of I think he got banged up in this last. See here. I had seen some notes on his that he had something that he was suffering from injury wise. Do you see anything on that?
I can check.
Give me just a second. My dogs are barking at something real quick. I'm sorry. you cover. Go ahead and cover any other plays from this game that you want to talk about. I don't really have anything else on my list here, and then we're going to move on to the Miami at Indy game next. So okay. 1 second.
So the injury situation with Matt Stafford is that he is suffering with a hip and back. He was limited in practice on Thursday, and he is questionable for Sunday's game against the Bears. But that's the situation there with Matt Stafford. We'll see if he plays, if he's good to go. But this game, I like Hunter was saying, the tight end situation is a pretty good one here for the Detroit side of the ball. Chicago is one of the, they give up a lot of points to the tight end position, and so Hawkinson's in play in this game for sure. If Stafford is limited by injury, it may be a better play to actually have Hawkinson in this game. So, because he may not be able to withstand the rush of Chicago's defense, and without having to dump it off quickly to Hawkinson. So,
yeah. Yeah, Hawkinson's been one of those guys that's been pretty frustrating. Put up that first good game, and then it's kind of not really produced as much. I mean, this matchup looks pretty good on paper for him. So, but I've seen it where that's been the case in the last couple games actually, and he hasn't produced that much. So, I mean, you could take a couple shots on him, but I don't know if he's definitely not one of those must play type situations for me. So, looks like we got a question about. We didn't really cover Hunt coming back, but
oh no, we didn't. That's actually a good question. Thank you, Floyd.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know what your thoughts there on that situation.
Let me get something on him first before we start talking about him. I want to look at something for him.
So did we cover that game? Right.
We did. It's the Cleveland game.
Yeah, where is it? Oh, yeah, Cleveland Buffalo. Yeah. Oh, yeah, we talked about the Chubb Singletary situation there.
Okay. So I got some of the numbers on him.
Yeah.
So the domination station, and this isn't going to stay this way in terms of his ownership, but he is as low as you can get for a salary for a running back at 3,000 on DraftKings. His ownership right now is set at 5.8%. It could go up slightly. What I think that is that people are trying to beat the market and get a hold of Kareem Hunt before he has a blow-up game, and try to get him as basement salary as much as possible. And if he does go off for like 15 points, he is definitely making value at that range. And what that does for you is it opens up an incredible amount where you could actually afford Christian McCaffrey and Michael Thomas in that roster construction. I wouldn't go heavy with it. Me personally, I probably would limit it to like one or two lineups, but that's my personal preference. But if somebody wanted to go heavier and they thought, Kareem Hunt could blow up in this spot, then take a chance. And chances like that they're tournament winning.
Yeah, I mean, here's my thought here is that Kareem Hunt's going to be the way that I think that he'll probably be worked into the mix here is that we've kind of seen Chubb move from basically a feature back kind of role over the last couple of weeks to more of a like two down type back, and they're using that Hillard kind of in that pass catching role. So I think that they're going to probably just slot Kareem Hunt into that role, and we won't see any more of the Hillard.
No,
and Kareem Hunt will come in for the pass catching role, which is really unfortunate for Chubb because he's actually been pretty effective as a pass catching back for the beginning of the season. So we do have to downtick his production a bit in this matchup, but I still think that there's potential for him to have, Chubb he has game breaking speed. He's like so fast that if he can break through that secondary, he's gone. And so he can any week he can put up an 80-yard rush on a single play. So I don't have any problem playing Chubb here. I'm a little bit concerned about playing Kareem Hunt. I don't really know what to expect coming there. I don't mind taking a few shots at him, but
Right.
I think you got to consider the fact that he's going to be coming into a, maybe like a 30% role in this offense. For third down situations only. So
I'm with you on that. I think 1-2 shares of them, 2 max. The reason why I say that is if you look at what you really have to look at what he's done since he's been suspended for 10 weeks. Has he done much, like in terms of keeping himself in football condition? You're not going to know that until he actually steps foot on the field, really. I haven't heard too much about his how he's been keeping up with his football shape at all. But and I'm here in Ohio, and I'm around the Browns fans all the time, and they're if I play him, it'll be like one lineup, and I want to kind of see what he does, type of thing. And
right.
go from
So
there.
Solon's got a question here on, or at least I guess a comment on Kenyon Drake as a pivot off of Montgomery is what he's saying. But if DJ's truly 100%, he can see Murray checking down to Drake or DJ since the Bucs stopped the run. I don't really know that that's the case, to be honest. The Bucs don't just stop the run; they stop the running back. They're pretty good at both pass catching and run stopping defensively. They're only giving up, I think, let me see my numbers, 16.5 points to running back position, period, on average for the year. So that's pretty horrific, right? And then if you want to take that and then split that between two different guys, like, I don't know. I'm not going to take a shot on it. So play it at your own risk, I think. I'm not too big on that situation. I mean, I like the fact that Kenyon Drake came in there and just balled out last week and looked pretty steadily. But you kind of think about that. I like when the guys get traded from one team where they've really been under, like not utilized correctly or haven't been performing well, and they get traded to a team that does that position well.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I love playing those kind of guys because, like, they got something to prove and they're going to get an opportunity to showcase, and I think that's a good situation there for a talented back to come in and really showcase his stuff. I don't like it this week. I think people will be chasing that a bit, and I'm not going to be one of them.
Oh, sure. And I've actually seen people talk about it. DJ being back fully healthy, out of the backfield, and could Kyler Murray dump it off to him? Sure, could happen. But Tampa Bay is a shutdown rush defense. So they funnel their defense funnels it to the pass. I mean, they stuffed Carson last week. So I mean, on the road. So we'll see. Drake was a great pickup for him. I'm glad he's in a better spot, but I'm not playing him. I'm not playing him. Not playing DJ.
All right, let's move on. I think we've only got a couple games left here. Miami at Indy. This has got a bit of play potential here as well. I think I was looking up the news here on Indy, and Brissett, I think, is likely to play.
Out. I think
is he out?
Let
me see.
I think it's going to be Hoyer, but I'll verify that.
I wrote down my notes here. Brissett.
He's a game time decision right now, but it's probably more than likely it'll be ruled out.
Yeah, it looks like game time decision for him. Okay. Yeah, and we also have the news that T.Y. Hilton is out, confirmed. So
and it's also confirmed that Paris Campbell is ruled out.
Yeah, so we've got a really reduced set of
So the
oh god,
WRs basically
Hoyer sucks.
yeah.
God, he sucks. Um,
The WRs
so
are
yeah,
basically Pascal and Chester Rogers.
yeah. So Pascal's an interesting guy. I think he's option. Uh, we've seen him put up some decent numbers when he's been put into that role. So I think he's play. I think Marlon Mack's really just the only decent play here on this team for the most part. Against the Miami team that can't stop the rush, he's going to be pretty high owned. He's I think projected right now, like around 20 or something like that percent. I'll pull up the numbers here in
I
just a
just
minute.
pulled up some of the ownership numbers on the Indianapolis wide receivers.
Yeah.
Zach, so Pascal is at 19.8% in the domination station, and Chester Rogers is at 8.9
Mm.
or 8.91%. If that Pascal ownership percentage is going to stay true at the 19-20% range,
Yeah, I don't have any interest in that.
he would be chalk, and it's not good chalk.
Yeah, that's not good. Not with Hoyer in there.
And not at 5,300 either. I mean that's a lot for him.
Yeah. See what I lost my browser tab here. I must have closed it. Okay, so we've got on the Miami side. I think you can make a case. There's not a whole lot of Indy defense has been pretty decent across the board. So, if they have a weakness, it's maybe against the tight end. And I know that's where some of the talk around Mike Gesicki, however you say Gesicki or whatever,
Yeah.
and he's been coming on sort of strong, I guess, recently. So, I don't dislike the play. I don't know that I like it a ton if there's going to be a lot of people on it. I don't typically like jumping on a more of a cheap punt type tight end if he's going to be high owned kind of deal. But I think it's an okay play. Like it's just sort of mediocre for me.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are going to go there. His ownership right now is at, we're talking about the tight end for Miami, Gesicki, almost 5.5% right now. That number will increase by the time we get to lock. So, I don't know if I'm going to have as much ownership as the field. I may be around, max 10% ownership in him, probably more so the 5% ownership. It's a good play though. I mean, but I'm not sure if I really want to put that much stock in him.
Yeah. It looks like let's see, we got a comment from Patrick saying that there was word that Holly was out for Sunday. The last news that I saw on him was he was questionable but likely to play. But we can double check that real quick.
Hollywood Brown.
Yeah.
He on Roto World, he is listed as questionable.
Yeah.
For the matchup against the Bengals.
Yeah.
He's out. Let me check.
It says he's tentatively expected to play through his questionable tag, though. So that's the last news that I have on Roto World on him. So I think that I'm expecting him to play. So I think, let's see, he was, yeah. If it comes out that he doesn't play, then I really think the only guy to stack, if you're gonna stack that game, which I don't think you have to. I think you play Andrews or Ingram with Jackson. I think you can literally stack Jackson with Ingram, and there's enough running potential in that game to go to both of those guys.
Yeah, and I just checked the other two wide receivers in that game for Baltimore would be Willie Snead and Miles Boykin, and they're
Yeah.
not getting the target share that you want to be able to roster them. Um,
No. The
if
only guys the only playable receivers on that team are Mark Andrews and Hollywood Brown. But
yeah,
you know,
um, but yeah, I mean, if Hollywood Brown is out, that increases my ownership in Ingram and Andrews
yeah.
for sure.
All right. Let's see here. We've got one last game. It's LA Rams versus Pittsburgh at Pittsburgh. So we got another northern game. I'm not sure what the weather looks like in Pittsburgh there, but
So we know that James Conner is out of this game for he's been ruled out. Let me just pull up their entire organization here. So Trey Edmonds was not listed on the final injury report, so it's more than likely that he's going to play.
yeah, so he's kind of their grinder kind of
Yep.
guy, and it's going to be Jalen Samuels is really the guy that you want to
Yeah.
target from a running back perspective, just because he's getting so many passes. Like,
Who else?
I really only like him though if Juju is
Right.
not going to play. If Juju plays, I don't like Samuels nearly as much in this matchup. But if Juju sits, I think that that you can easily play Jalen Samuels here.
Yeah, and in Juju, according to Roto World, he's questionable right now with a toe injury that got re-aggravated last week. He suffered the toe injury initially earlier in the season. So, yeah, I do like that call, like Jalen Samuels, if Juju's out um, this week. So that's a good call on that. I think Trey Edmonds is just going to be, like you said, he's going to be a plotter. But the real play is
Yeah,
Samuels.
yeah, and I don't like that matchup as well with the LA Rams run defense. You know, they've got pretty heavy dudes on the ground in front. So if I'm going to attack that, I'm going to attack it through the air with Samuels.
Yeah, for sure.
If I want to play that at all. So, um, you know, this game sort of stacks up as a fairly defensive ground and pound type game. The you know, the over unders coming in at 45 right now on it, and it's a 3.5 point. LA Rams are being favored. So you know, they're on the road in Pittsburgh. Yeah, this is a hard one to call, to be honest. I don't know that I feel super strong about any part of this game. You know, you kind of maybe want to get a bit of the Rams passing or even a little bit of their
Yeah.
rushing game, but Pittsburgh's been pretty elite from a from a cornerback coverage perspective so far. So we got Brandon Cooks is going to be probably out. Actually, he's definitely out for this week with his concussion, you know, multiple concussions on the week. So, I mean, a guy like Reynolds could come into play as kind of, if you're looking at kind of like a punt type option there, and then you know, your normal Cooper Cup and whatnot are, you know, guys that
Yeah.
are in play every week kind of deal. But you know, this is I think a little bit harder matchup, I think, than they faced in recent weeks. So you know,
Yeah.
I've got a decent respect for the Pittsburgh secondary, especially since they got Fitzpatrick from Miami. Their secondary's been pretty stellar, so I don't know that I want to test that too much
Right.
here.
Yeah. In the So with this game, Goff doesn't really play well when he's away from Los Angeles. He's not a great road quarterback. So really the only viable spots for me in this game is probably going to be Cup and maybe take a couple of shots on Gerald Everett. I do like the fact that Robert Woods' salary is pretty low at 5.6 K on DraftKings, but the way that Pittsburgh's defense has been playing lately, and yeah, you nailed it. You nailed it with Minka Fitzpatrick now on their team. Um, they do get after the quarterback, and will Jared Goff have enough time to be able to get it to Robert Woods? I don't know if he could or not. But Cooper Cup he's going to get targeted heavy in this game because I think they're going to have to go short him and Gerald Everett in this game for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I actually don't mind Todd Gurley here either a little bit. He hasn't been involved enough really to produce. I guess the other news and notes is Malcolm Brown is likely going to be back this week. So there is a bit of uncertainty on how that's going to affect Darrell Henderson and distribution there. I don't think it really affects Todd Gurley at all, but it kind of I don't know how they're going to play it. Like they may just decide to go with one guy or the other, and Henderson be the guy because he's been pretty good in that role. So I don't know yet how that's going to play out. I don't know that I want to play either one of those guys anyway. So if I'm going to play somebody, it'd be Todd Gurley, and he's only sort of like a low end play for me in this particular matchup. But I think that there are some, there's at least a little bit of potential there for Todd Gurley to get some rushing and passing work. So
they're only projected for 88 yards per StatStational model, and Pittsburgh against the rush and pass receiving running backs. I mean, they're top 5 and 6 in the league. So I'm probably not going to go there with Gurley at all. And I wasn't even going to go there with Malcolm Brown or Darrell Henderson at all. It was so in this game, I really think it's just going to come down to Cooper Kupp and Gerald Everett, if anybody from that side of the ball, and then if Juju's out, Jalen Samuels, and if Juju is out, then what's going to happen is Jalen Ramsey's going to move over and probably cover Deontay Johnson, and that's going to completely take him out of this picture entirely because what other receivers do they have, Pittsburgh, that could
I think Switzer is their guy that would come in there for Juju in a slot role, and Switzer's Switzer, so like it's not. They also have Washington who's back, so he'd be kind of like the other guy out there. But like the Rams have good corners even outside of Jalen Ramsey, so it's not like they were already good before they got Jalen Ramsey, and now they're even better. So I don't know that I want to go there, especially with no Ben Roethlisberger or whatever throwing. So not a whole lot to love here. But I don't mind going back to the Jalen this week. I think they'll definitely have to do a lot of dump off type passes to him in this situation if Juju's out. So
for sure.
The other side of it is I don't mind playing either one of the defenses here. I like actually Pittsburgh defense quite a bit in this situation, and at home at Pittsburgh against a Rams team, and I think that they're susceptible. So I don't mind that.
You're going to see a little bit more ownership on Pittsburgh Steelers defense this week because of the 19 points that they put up last week. So you're going to see a little bit more elevated ownership, but Los Angeles Rams, their ownership's probably going to be sub 5%.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see them being anything more than 5.5%. So,
All
yeah.
right. Well, let's wrap this up. And you want to wrap it up like we did last week? You want to put together your lineup?
So one lineup that I was kind of talking about in the beginning, I'm still playing with it
Mm-hmm.
in my mind, but it is a Patrick Mahomes lineup. I do really like Patrick Mahomes this week, but it starts with Patrick Mahomes, and then from there in my running back slots, I went with David Montgomery and Marlon Mack in this spot.
I'm gonna do it with
And
you here. I'm bringing it up. Let's go. Let's do it, man.
okay.
I got Mahomes locked in. Let's do it.
So what I'm kind of, what I talked about earlier in the pod was what I'm tossing back and forth in my head with this is the exposure to Kelsey with Patrick Mahomes. Kelsey has not had his blow up game yet, and he's in a great spot here. It could happen this week. Um, and Tyreek in the same lineup, so I'm going back and forth with it. So the preliminary on this is I got Mahomes, I got Montgomery, I got Mack, I got Tyreek Hill, and I got Michael Thomas right now. And I got Ted Ginn, Ronald Jones, Mike Gesicki.
Wait, I'm sorry. You got Michael Thomas, Tyreek, Christian McCaffrey,
No, not McCaffrey.
Montgomery, Mahomes.
I don't have.
This is already sounding pretty studly.
I don't have McCaffrey in this lineup.
I thought you said okay. Who was your other running back?
Montgomery and Mack, and
Oh,
then
Mac.
Ronald Jones.
I thought you meant C-Mac.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And then, then I got the Colts defense at 3,500.
That's a little pricey for such a.
So I mean, what we can do right now is
let's see if we can get a cheaper defense in there.
Yeah, so let's move the defense from the Indianapolis Colts down to Cleveland. That's $1,000 savings. Okay.
I like that. I think you could almost yeah. I like that. They're probably like about as low as you want to go.
Yeah. So let's so now I want to take out Michael Thomas. Okay.
You can come up 100 if you wanted to play Pittsburgh. I'm going to come up to Pittsburgh on mine.
And I'm going to go up to Travis Kelce in this lineup. I'm going to do that. And what I want to do now is I like Ted Ginn in this matchup with Atlanta, but I do like Calvin Ridley more. So maybe I go up to Calvin Ridley here. See how this is going to look. I want to start doing this. So that gives us 2 positions left, or 1 wide receiver.
So you dropped off Michael Thomas then?
Yep.
Okay.
For the time being. I kind of just want to see how it looks and stuff. So we have Mahomes in there. We have Montgomery and Mack in the running back slots right now. Also, while we're doing this, I'll let everybody know the halfway season shark autopsy report's coming out tomorrow morning. And what it's looking at is everything for the first 9 weeks of the season for the winning Millie Maker lineups. There are some pretty interesting things in terms of what I was able to research and find out about start times, kickoff times for when certain placed. And so what I mean by that is what I was able to find in the research was that running backs were more utilized in the 1 p.m. games versus any other start time on kickoff. When 3 running backs were used in the winning Million Maker lineup, one being in the flex, two of the 3 running backs were used in the 1 p.m. game, whereas only one was used in the 4:05 game or the 4:25 game. So, and then wide receivers was essentially almost the same. So
that's really weird. I mean, that's interesting. Like, do you think that that's just a factor of there's more games played at the 1 o'clock than the 4 o'clock, or what do you attribute that to? Do you think that people are just are there just kind of like how it shakes out?
Yeah, I mean at first I thought that is a part of it, that there are more games. There's typically 6 to 7 games per slate at the 1 p.m. Then you have to look at the closing Vegas lines and how many of the closing Vegas lines are meeting that threshold that you're wanting to be within, for wide receivers and running backs. Basically, with just 2, and we got 4,300 per position left, 4,350, which turns out to be about 4,300. So, what you could do in this lineup is you got a viable option in Christian Kirk there at 5,200. There's also Devontae Parker at 4,800. And then you got Curtis Samuel at 4,600. And let's see who else we have here. And DJ Moore at 5,200. The weather might pull DJ Moore out of this lineup for me and go with. And then you got Hollywood Brown at 5,100, depending on injury status there. So I'm going to just put Christian Kirk in here for the time being. So I got 3,500 left. So it really doesn't give me a lot of great options at the 3,500 range to look at. I mean, I got Trey Edmonds there at 3,400, but I'm not really high on him. So I may move off of Christian Kirk here and go down to let's see, I'll go down to Devontae Parker in this lineup. That gives me 3,900 left. So within the 3,900 range, you have Hawkinson at 3,900. One thing I did know, I did notate in my research for the winning Million Maker lineups through 9 weeks of the season, no one winning Million Maker lineup used the tight end in the flex. So that just showcased that tight ends aren't as valuable in the flex as a lot of people think that they.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen that in historic years where that double tight end has hit the Million Maker before, but with as high scoring as the wide receivers and the running backs have been this year, that's not been a successful formula just due to the fact that tight ends just generally will not score as high as those other positions. So it's a pretty, you're doing it normally for salary savings just because you can usually get the cheaper guys in there, but at a higher volume. But I think it's a better cash strategy, to be honest, than a GPP strategy.
Right. I agree with you on that. So I finished up this lineup. I used Devontae Parker and I slotted Ted Ginn into my flex, and I moved up from the Cleveland Browns to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And that's actually a pretty good lineup. I mean, you're getting Tyreek Hill, Mahomes, and Kelsey stacked together. I didn't run it back with anybody, but you obviously could run it back with with Henry, you could come down from Mac to Henry, and that could open up
Mhm.
more salary for you for other for the wide receiver positions if you didn't like having Devontae Parker and Ridley in your lineup or Ted Ginn. So, but yeah, that's just one of many lineups that you could create off of that.
Yeah, I went a little variation on yours. So let's say I went Mahomes, and I went Marla Mack with Devin Singletary over Montgomery, a little bit cheaper. I mean, I really just love the fact that one, Buffalo's playing Cleveland, so it's a good matchup from a running back perspective. But like more so is what they finally decided to do in Buffalo last week. Buffalo last week, against Washington, where they finally just said, okay, screw Gore and let's run Singletary, and gave him 20 attempts in that game, and he produced, with a great line. I mean, like if this is an indicator of like what they plan to do for the rest of the year, then great. Like let's load him up. And right now we can still get him at non-stud prices, but if they keep running him 20 plus times a game, his price is going to go up. Like it's going to be up into the $6,000 to $7,000 range here before long. So I'm going to get him cheap now in a good matchup. So like that.
I like it.
Running with Michael Thomas, Tyreek, combo wide receivers. I got Slayton in there for my third wide receiver, 4,200. Jonnu Smith to run it back in the Titans Kansas City game, so I get both sides of the field there. And then I got the Steelers in there right now for my defense, but I'm thinking I can either run with the Steelers and go with like a Boyd or Robbie Anderson, kind of guy. I don't really like any of the players in that below 4,700 or even 4,800 range. It's like there's nobody that's really just jumping out to me here. I mean, I could double stack this, on the Tennessee side with Jonnu and AJ Brown. Not loving that, considering I only have Tyreek on the Mahomes side, but I mean, I suppose you could go with Hardman if you wanted to take a shot with him out of the kind of the slot position there. He didn't do so well last week against Minnesota. He's kind of that like gets 2 catches a game kind of guy, and he's got to catch a touchdown kind of pass. So it's not the best situation there. Anyway, so you got to figure out who's good. If you came down to Cleveland defense, you could go with Devontae Parker at $100 more. So that might be a decent option, but that matchup's not super great anyways. So not loving getting off Pittsburgh defense for him. I think for now I'm going to slot in. I'm probably going to slot in Robbie Anderson, so that way I have a part of the Giants side and a part of the Jets side in that game. Just kind of hope it kind of goes between those two guys.
Yeah, that's
I'm going to go ahead.
That's actually a pretty nice little roster construction. I do like that a lot. Actually,
yes. So I got 2 double stack, or I got a game stack with 2. No, I guess I just got one correlation stack, right? So with the Jets Giants game, but still, I think I like that. All right, I think it's a pretty kind of, it's still pretty kind of. It's not as pretty as it could be, just because we got some high price guys in there, and we really don't have any mega studs at the running back position, which is the downside to those, these lineups here. We're sacrificing that for the pay up at wide receiver, but I'll run that in one of my King of the Beach or World Championship tournaments and see if it pays off. And I'll do a few with some higher end running back situations and maybe punt with the Tannehill lineup. What's his price, anyways? Probably.
I think he's pretty low. Let me
Yeah.
check. I think he's like 51. Yep, 51.
So what I like to do in those situations is rather than go like so with like Mahomes, I'll put him with his number one with like Tyreek, and then if I do an alternate version with Tannehill, I'll do Tannehill with Watkins,
Yeah.
and then run two heavy running backs in that lineup, right? So I'll do Watkins and I'll do AJ Brown or Jonnu Smith, and and then I'll put in Christian McCaffrey or somebody like that into those lineups. So then I differentiate both sides of it. So I got heavy wide receiver, high end studs, and then one with heavy running back studs, and playing both sides of that field. So at least I get a part of that game on both sides.
Yeah, and I like Darius Slayton in that game this weekend. I think he's gonna have a pretty good game. He's had a pretty good connection with Daniels. So
Cool, man. Well, it was great doing this again this week. We're pretty consistently a 2 hour pod at this point, so I don't know. We're
sorry.
over on this, but anyhow, I hope everybody liked.
You get it together, we talk a lot.
Yeah. But no, it was
Yeah.
great. I hope everybody enjoyed it. Anybody who's still around, hey, we actually gained some viewers over the course of it. So cool. And I hope everybody has a great week and hits it big. And I know Burns and I are going to be out there targeting the last week for King of the Beach and trying to get some tickets to that as well. So load up.
Yes. Can't wait to go.
All right. Peace.
Bye, guys.